just labor intensive.
Right.
Now you're able to do 1,000-year-old secret society indoctrination and mind control, but you're able to do it for pennies on the dollar through digital technology, and the payback is immediate because you can get them to buy a lot more stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right. So you combine marketing. I mean, think about it. I'm a criminal and you're honest. And me as a criminal has mind control technology to market, and you're not using that, and I win the market,
Mhm.
right? So you got this negative feedback loop. The more you use crime to win in the marketplace, the more the consumers like you.
Yeah.
So politically and economically, the feedback loop to the leadership is crime pays in a way that, because remember, you can make the, instead of me coming in and burglarizing your house and burning your house down with arson, and direct physical, I can just come into Lahaina and make it look like I can pretend it's a natural fire, right? And you won't sell your land, I can get it anyway.
Right. What was it? Smedley D. Butler so eloquently described how, you know, war is this great for business. And, we see so many levels of warfare being carried out.
Well, here's the thing, and it's part of, creating a society of autistic or sort of Asperger syndrome
Mm.
business leaders. What you've done is you've created so many different ways of creating people and educating people so they have no empathy for other people.
Mm.
So, for example, I don't know if you ever saw Enron. I had to do a real deep dive on Enron, so I learned a lot about Enron. But you would see these films of these energy traders who thought it was really funny to game the California energy market and bankrupt tons of small businesses. And they thought it was funny. It was like a video game.
Oh.
And but I've seen this. I can't tell you. I was at the Aspen Institute in 2017, and it was a crypto conference. It was full of lovely young people who were, very excited and enthusiastic about Bitcoin.
Mm.
So I'm listening to a guy who's running for president in the Libertarian. It was one of the first trial balloons I ever saw on how they wanted to use Bitcoin to basically implode governments. Anyway, so this guy gets up and he says, I'm gonna win the presidency, and when I do, I'm gonna shut down the government. And when I shut down the government, I'm gonna auction off all the assets, and I'm gonna give everybody Bitcoin so they'll be fine. And so I got up and I said, okay, 40 to 50% of the total income in any of the 3,100 counties in America comes from the federal government. So if you shut that off on day one, I said, this is exactly what they did in Russia. If you
Mm.
shut that off, they have enough money to go for 3 weeks, then they have enough food to go for another 3 weeks, and then they, can survive without food for another 3 weeks, and then they start to die off. And that's exactly, the Russian population dropped dramatically.
Mm.
And I said, now what that means is you will send, so 40 to 50% of the income in all counties just stops, at which point all the retail that lives off that income stops. And now 70% of the economy stops,
Mm.
which means that Goldman Sachs can now pick up all the assets you're going to auction off at 10 cents, at pennies on the dollar. So
Right.
Goldman Sachs will be in heaven. They'll be great and make a fortune. And everybody's cheering for him. They're like, this is so cool. We'll switch to Bitcoin. It's great. So I said to the audience, I said, okay, so you want your father's military pension to be turned off. You want your grandmother's Social Security to be turned off. You want the federal contracts that support half the employment in your county shut off. Is that really what you want? Do
Mm.
you want to destroy, you're set to inherit $1 million to $2 million from your parents.
Mm.
Do you want that money wiped out so that you inherit nothing? Is that really what you want?
Mm.
There was a complete inability to connect the dots
Mm.
between, their family's income, their own income, and their own family wealth and what the guy was talking about.
Yeah, it's like money has become so abstracted that we don't see how it relates to human beings and life. It's just this tool or this token that we can hoard at the consequence of, the effects that it has on people around you, communities,
So I
states.
would say this, your money is being used to track and herd you and ultimately herd you into the digital concentration camp. And you need, instead of money being your master, you need to master your money. It's that simple. It's
Yeah.
just a tool. But it is being used to do surveillance and control you. And you need to learn how the system works so that you can master the money. And anybody can do it. It's not, in our job at Solari, so our tagline is actionable intelligence for a free and inspired life. And we have a building wealth curriculum, and it's got six pillars. One is living equity, one is financial equity. There are four other pillars.
Mm.
And what we tell people is, in this environment, you're in a war, so you're part of Omni War. And in Omni War, the game of Omni War is not to make money. The game of Omni War is to live and to live freely and to survive, right?
Mm.
And money is just one of the tools. But the most important tools is you've probably heard me say this. I tell everybody the currency of the future is relationships of trust.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So if you don't have a network or society or family or community of people you can trust, you're toast. I don't care how much you can have $2 trillion. It was funny. So I decided in 1998, I was in Washington and I saw what they were doing with the unipolar model. And I said, you're going to fail. I don't want to be part. You're going to fail. I don't want to be part. I'm going to leave. I'm going to fight you. I'm going to go out in the wilderness and I'm going to figure out how to not fail. I don't want Western civilization to fail. I want to be part of something excellent. So I'm out of this. And off I went. And I considered my odds very slim, but I was raised to believe that you can be part of a project that takes longer than your life. So
Mhm.
I thought, okay, well, I can contribute. But it seemed to me that there had to be a way through the changes upon us other than complete central control
Mhm.
and other than using organized crime to basically extract an economy that depended on the stupid people showing up.
Mhm.
So let me tell you another story. This is how I went to work in government. I was sitting in the boardroom at Dillon Reed. We had a banking meeting every week. And this was in 1988. And we had an LBO group that would finance LBOs. And First Boston was doing the Federated Campo deal. And they wanted to come in as part of their bridge line. So we would be with them, but they would be in the lead. And one of the bankers made a presentation on the deal. And in the deal, there was a sources and uses of funds. And in the uses, there was 220 million to come up out front to pay the investment bankers, lawyers, and top executives big money.
Mhm.
So we would extract these huge fees and make a lot of money. In the sources of funds, there was $150 million of productivity improvements that the middle managers would stick around and work hard for 15 years to generate a portion of the money we were going to take out up front. So they were going to spend the next 15 years of their lives making us rich, right?
Mhm.
So I looked at the sources and uses and I said to the guy who was running, Steve Fenster, I said, Steve, this isn't going to work. These guys can read. This is going to be a public document, the prospectus. They're going to walk with their feet. They're not going to stick around and work for the next 15 years to make us rich. And he looked at me, and it was this look that you'd get. It's like, I knew we shouldn't make a woman a partner. This is exactly why you can't make a woman a partner. Looking at me with this billboard look. And finally, one of the partners says, my middle name's Austin. He says, Austin, we'll be out in December, meaning we're doing the bridge line. We get the fees and we get out. So by the time the thing craters, we'll be out. And I turned to him and I said, Harry, our bond buyers, the people that we sell the bonds to, will not be out. They'll take the loss. Those are our customers. And they all looked at me like, we knew we shouldn't have made a girl a
Right, right.
partner. And I walked out. I went downstairs. I walked into the office of one of the guys who works for me, and I said, "How'd you like to go to Washington?" He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "The fraud has reached levels where this is going to collapse. let's be part of the cleanup team. There's nothing we can do here.
Wow.
And so that's what we did. We went in and sure enough, it collapsed and we got to be, we were right at the top of the lead of the cleanup team. It was very, very fascinating.
That's a great story.
Ah, I get, it's, you can always see, there's always at the intimate level of your day-to-day life,
Mm,
the signal as to what's really going on.
mm,
And what I love about money is if you are a portfolio strategist and you're looking at all the money from, because the community is the molecule and the planet is the body.
mm.
And to understand the body, you have to understand a molecule. To understand the molecule, you have to understand the body. And, the funny thing about my career was when I was a kid and seeing what was going on in West Philadelphia,
Mm,
I was like, this is crazy. If
mm,
you look at the living equity they're destroying to get a little bit of financial equity, this doesn't make any sense. We had four boarded up HUD fraud deals on the corner of um, it was catty corner at the top of the block, and it was destroying real estate values throughout the neighborhood.
mm.
And I know now how the guys who did the HUD fraud made money. Those houses were sitting up, boarded up, and empty for 4 years. And across the street, we had a family of six people living in a one-bedroom apartment. I'm like, four houses are empty, and I got a family of six living in a one-bedroom apartment, and they would take beautiful care of those things instead of them rotting away and destroying the value of our. It's like this makes no sense because the financial equity, the home equity in 100 plus homes is going down and being depressed,
Mm.
and they're unhappy, and the buildings are deteriorating in value. If a building like that is empty and boarded up, it can deteriorate, a lot of value. You
Yeah.
you want to you want to get people in there taking care of it. I was like, this is a lose lose lose. And when you talk to the guys who were doing the fraud, it's like they're like, we're making money. I was like, how can you? Well, it's because they had taxpayer credit and they had the dollar reserve system. That's how they were making money.
The madness is on such a level that it's just hard to comprehend.
It's
It's,
demonic. It's spiritual. At the root, it's spiritual. And because to do something about it, I'll never forget your colleague David Hughes. I think he wrote a Substack about this. And he said, I have to bring this up. He said, ever since, I've gone public and told published what I think is really going on, I've lost my position, and all sorts of. He said, all these people have shown up to help me, this person, this person, this person, this person. And then he said, I would like to point out what they all have in common is they're all Christians. And that's because if you're a Christian, you have a very different pricing model in your head. In
mm,
other words, there are things that can be priced in a marketplace, and there's some things that can't be priced
right.
because they are invaluable. They are above, they're not to be traded. And, you are not going to sell your immortal soul
Mm,
for a quick profit,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because you understand what you're dealing with here. So, people I know who have really, I would consider true Christians,
Mm,
they truly understand the value of those things which are not visible or those things which are not priced in a market. And they can put money in perspective as a tool and
like
not let money be the master. It's
like
letting money be the master is letting the servant be the master.
yeah. It's like
And then you get a society and an economy that's not agreement capable, and then things spiral down. And we are in that spiral down now.
yeah, this is what has puzzled me for decades about the fiat system. When I think about how people hand over their lives in pursuit of this instrument of exchange, and they say, or they admit belief in this instrument, that the value comes from what the people say. That is, that people have a belief or a faith in the system itself, and they pursue it. They pursue this token of exchange, and they treat this instrument as though it has some sort of intrinsic value.
It
But
does.
intrinsic value comes from human beings.
Right. So let me explain that. The problem with the dollar system is debt-based. If you go, you should read Alexander Murr. So if you go to Del Mar, you should go to Solari. We have a book review on his monetary history.
Hmm.
And what he explains, and I agree totally with him, I think he's one of the great monetary historians in the world. The best currencies are fiat currencies. So a currency, but here's the hard part about doing a fiat currency. You need good governance. If you don't have good governance, you get a mess, which is what our we have two problems. The dollar is debt based and we don't have good governance.
Hmm.
So and I would say in some ways, logistically it is, so in terms of operations, it's pretty good. In terms of building the trust of and working with the general economy and people, it's not good. But the ideal currency we would want is a fiat currency, not debt based, with a good governance system.
Hmm.
Now, why is the dollar real? The dollar's so take a stable coin and a dollar,
Hmm.
or take a crypto that doesn't have, any isn't collateralized by anything, whether it's the dollar or gold or anything else.
Hmm.
The dollar represents an economy and a participation of 325 million plus people in the United States, and it is backed indirectly by their credit and their value and their assets.
Hmm.
Okay, that's real. That
Hmm.
is real. And they are deeply vested in that system. And think of it as like a morphogenic field. The dollar is a field, it's a human field. And it's a human field of trust among all the people who use it.
Right.
And one of the reasons these guys are hoping to use stablecoin to get like 5 billion more people on the dollar is because there are many people around the world who'd rather be in the dollar than in their local currency. That's trust. So,
Hmm.
and so what you're dealing with when you deal with something like fiat currency is you're dealing the intersection between morphogenic fields and shared intelligence and money.
Right.
Now, if you look at Bitcoin and the other cryptos, they're trying to create a field. They're trying to create a community. They're trying to create a morphogenic field that will support this crypto on an ongoing basis.
Hmm.
And what you've seen in the people who are pumping and dumping crypto or Bitcoin and using it as a pump and dump tool is they're trying to manage that field and build that field for their own purpose.
Filthy lucre.
Not so much filthy lucre because their goal is, yes, they have a goal of making money. Their goal is control,
Hmm.
and they're using it as a pump and dump tool to build control and achieve a variety of things. We have a piece at Solari called Bitcoin Bailout, and I
Mhm.
would recommend it. Remember, money has no intrinsic value. What has intrinsic value are real assets. So it's real people,
Hmm.
real livestock, real,
Nature.
gold in the ground,
Yeah.
nature. Okay. And what you want to do is manage your use of money to get more and more real assets, get more and more. So, one of the ways they used Bitcoin was the central bankers wanted to accumulate more gold and they wanted to keep retail out of gold. So, part of Bitcoin was to keep everybody out of gold while they kept buying gold.
Hmm.
So, during that period that they were getting retail on Bitcoin, they were buying more land, more gold, more land, more gold, more land, more gold.
Hmm.
So, and Bitcoin was very, very successful at keeping people away from gold. And the most frightening was to keep them away from real assets, real enterprise. So,
Hmm.
you have a lot of great young people instead of starting businesses that deal with real assets and do something real, they're trading crypto and making money and thinking they're masters of the universe, and they're being kept economically, their economic muscle is being destroyed. So they know a lot about helping Mr. Global figure out how he's going to do an all digital financial system, but how is that a good use of your time, and where does that give you financial muscle?
Yeah, it seems to me that the crypto system, or the value of the crypto system is grounded in, again, faith, amorphous sort of feeling.
Right. But that faith wouldn't develop unless you had pumpers and dumpers with a huge amount of money to inject money in a variety of strategic ways. So, so the guys who control the fiat system have been using their resources to pump and dump this thing.
Mm.
You've had very strategic use of the money that the subsidy from the dollar system used to develop the system.
So I think we're at a huge crossroads now with Doge and the Stargate system and all of these technologies that are coming to the fore. Can you offer your
Yeah.
on-
So the Trump administration, I believed 6 weeks before the convention,
Mm,
I told John there was an article in Foreign Affairs, and I told John, if I'm right, the way this reads to me is the bankers have decided that Trump's their man to get the control grid for them. If you look at the other faction, they can't, they're not going fast enough. They're not making headway. So they're going to use Trump to get the control grid. So they're going to back him for president. That's what I believe happened.
mm,
So, and if you look at the speed that they're moving to build the control grid, it's astonishing.
yeah.
So, Stargate, of course, is to put the data centers in place. The challenge you've got in an all digital financial or transaction system is the energy usage is frightening.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see how we get from here to there because I think the energy use, unless you unless you finally bring in breakthrough energy,
Mm.
which they could do if they had complete control, I don't see how it works. There's one article in February in Bloomberg saying Texas, for its data centers, was going to need 30 new nukes.
Wow.
Right. Can you imagine? So, yeah, and they want to remember